We at the Global Foundation of Public Speaking believe in the uniqueness and value of every young person's God-given dreams. We realize that for those dreams to be a reality, it will take a lot of knowledge, wisdom, and capacitation. We therefore decided to ask for advice from seasoned professionals who are top achievers in their various areas of competence and learn from them as a way to celebrate International Youth Day in line with its theme of transforming education. And this is what they had to teach us.
Honorable Coventry, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
The last year has been a really exciting one, dare I say, for you. You have been you've been appointed to a very high profile ministry, and you have the privilege of being Ella's mother.
Yeah.
And please tell me, how have you managed the transition from private life or from corporate now into a public office?
So I think that's something that just evolves and is continuously evolving. Going from being more of a public figure, I still think I'm a public figure, but now involved in a government role, I guess. I think it's had its challenges, ups and downs, in terms of what people assume and their assumptions. I was given this appointment, and as you said, it's a high profile, it's a lot of work, but there's some exciting things on the horizon, and that is motivating. But I think it's been hard going from being an athlete who the general public used to always love me. You could never really say anything bad. And then I took this position, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, you're now a minister, you're terrible, you're not very nice. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is awful, I'm still the same person. So I think, there's definitely been ups and downs. But at the end of the day, I'm just trying to ensure and manage that I as a person don't change. My morals and my values are still exactly the same. I still want to do the best that I can for my country, and now that just, instead of me competing on a world stage in a pool, that's being and coming into an office every day to work for young people in sports and artists. And I would like to have seen a lot of things move quicker.
Right.
And I think that can sometimes be frustrating because I have to rely on a lot of other moving parts.
Yes.
Whereas being a swimmer and an athlete, you get results if you train hard, right? And everything's more in your control.
There we go.
Where in this role, there's quite a few things that are out of my control.
Nice.
And so that has also just been hard to adjust. But I think we're getting there, and hopefully the youth and our sports people and our artists will start to see some of the fruits of our labor in the next few months, I hope.
And you speak about process, and something that's very important to International Youth Day, specifically this year, of transforming through education. What can you say in hindsight prepared you for this role?
Well, I think there's two different things. I think first off, being a part of the International Olympic Committee and understanding different roles and responsibilities, politics to a degree, yes, it's sport, but that carries across all spheres. That has sort of prepared me. I think from my athletic career, being able to set myself goals. One thing that I think has been difficult is, as a swimmer, I never spoke about, I want to win gold and I want to do this and I want to do that. I trained and then I achieved it. And I think I still tend to want to work that way, and I'm not interested in sharing a lot about the process, but more about the end results when we achieve them. And I think people want to hear more about the process so they can see things happening. So that's something that I'm trying to be a lot better at. It's taking some time because it's just not me. I don't shout, we're going to do this and we're going to do that until we actually do it.
Do it, yes.
So that's been new. And I think the other thing in hindsight is also just being able to be motivated to come in and really look at structures. And again, like we're looking at transformation through education. The first few months, I was just educating myself on what my roles and responsibilities were, what exactly was within my ministry, what were VTCs, what kind of programs did we run, what and how could we get involved in sport, what and how could we get involved in art, what do we push for, again, what are we responsible for from a government side. I didn't know that part of my portfolio being with the arts was any time that there is a state occasion, we have to make sure the entertainment is there. And so there's a lot of things that I was doing in educating myself on what exactly were those roles and responsibilities, because until you can actually understand what they are, you can't really make improvements or make something better. So I felt that I had to take that time to really understand exactly what it is that this position is at the moment. And now that I understand that, how can I tweak it? How can I make it better? What can we change? What can we get rid of? And that again all comes back to being able to be adaptable and transform yourself.
And I like that, because you are directing yourself to make sure there are certain priorities at the top of your mind. And my mind quickly rushes to say, how are you making sure that those priorities are informed by the young people and by your constituents?
So I think the biggest thing is making sure that we have open communication with young people, with all different groups, all of society. And one of the things that we're trying to set up, and not just set up, but actually have it work, is have youth focal desks in each of the ministries. And if we can do that, then we're obviously hearing from more young people, not just young people in sport or young people in arts or young people in political parties, but all spheres of our youth. And I think if we can get something like that to be successful in terms of understanding what opportunities young people want in the different spheres of our economy, then we will be better able to, one, prepare them, and two, help them to succeed, and three, continue to support them.
Wow. And with regards to preparing them to succeed, and I know you spoke a lot about your VTCs, what are those and what do they really do for young people in terms of transforming them through education?
So I love the idea of vocational training centers, and it has been focused on targeting young people who are not necessarily the best in school, and I can 100% relate to that. I'm dyslexic. I never did very well in school. I was sort of a C/D student. In college, I was able to work really hard and get that up to a sort of more average of an A-, a B, but it took a lot of hard work, and it took sometimes those days where you're just like, frustrated that there wasn't another way in which you could learn something. And the VTCs show how you can take and learn something practically, and not just through a classroom. And I think that's really important, because in the world today, you don't have to just learn in a classroom. You can learn at home, you can learn on the bus coming to school, or there's so many different spheres. And so the vocational training centers are very important, I think, to harness and have opportunities for young people who maybe can't afford to keep going to school, or who have dropped out of school but want to learn how to do something. And these centers are there to be able to provide an opportunity to young people. Now, in saying that, I believe that one of our areas of weaknesses right now is not having those VTCs up to a world, up to scratch, in terms of what and how we are teaching those different practices. If we take mechanics, I think it's great that we have mechanic courses, but if we look at anywhere else in the world, most of the mechanics show up to your house to fix the car with a computer. And we don't have, we're still doing the old school, working on trucks and things. So I think we have to be able to update, and this is where I'm talking and looking at private corporates to look at partnering in terms of what they can bring in terms of different upgraded facilities for our VTCs, simple things like Wi-Fi and computers, and just be able to uplift and bring it up. We're talking about how do we become a middle income country by 2030. At our VTCs, like I believe across the nation with any of our training centers, we can't just catch up to the rest of the world. We have to like leapfrog, right?
Okay.
So we don't have time to just sort of, we've got 20 years to catch up where everyone is. Like, no, we need to leapfrog that
right
and
now,
get up to speed where everyone is right now, because that's what young people want. And that's what we need to be able to provide for them.
I love how you speak with so much passion about the young people, and you know the various different groups. And one that I really know you're passionate about was the Zimbabweans. You were tweeting about them, you were behind them full force, and they delivered, didn't they?
They did so well. Come on, a lady sports. Come on. Our women's sports teams are doing so well. We're watching our Mighty Warriors at the moment, and they've made semi-finals, and our under-23s have made semi-finals in COSAFA, so yeah.
My concern though is, how do we make sure that the buzz that the Gems got, the attention, the airplay, the support doesn't die down now that the World Cup is over? Like, how do we make sure that this issue of supporting sport is not based purely on the gender of the athletes?
So I think there's a couple different things, and with sport, there's been some really good things happening, and then there's also been some sad moments, like with cricket and things that we're going through at this point. But it all comes down to being able to create stronger structures around our sports. Because for too long, we've always done things last minute. And even with the Gems, it was incredible, the response that we had. But they qualified last year, and we really only got sponsors and people to come on board 2 months before they went. They needed that support a year before. And if we can create the right structures, and that's what I'm working with the Sports and Recreation Commission and the board, to come up with stronger structures around just simple things of knowing when we have competitions, what do they look like, how much support will be needed from government, but that needs to be done a year in advance, 2 years in advance, so that things can be budgeted and athletes can be looked after, and it's not just last minute.
Yes.
And the other thing we need to do is we need to gain the faith back from the corporate world. For too long, we've had mismanagement of funds in associations, and maybe there hasn't been mismanagement, but nothing's been vocally shared. There hasn't been transparency, so better governance within our sports federations and associations, so that we can back them when they're looking for sponsors. We can say, yes, they've been audited and they're doing good jobs, and they're doing good, and they're putting back into the community, so this is a great association to sponsor. Because for too long, corporates have started removing themselves because of bad governance and not clear transparency. So we need to fix those things in order for us to make sure that our athletes can become professional sportsmen and women.
And as a roundup, if a young person could come and sit here in your office, what would you want them to know to assist you to better their lives as young people? What would you want them to know?
I think that mainly I would just want young people to know that don't sit around and wait. Don't sit around and wait for an opportunity to think maybe, it's sort of like sitting around waiting, I'm going to win the lotto. Well, the chances of you winning a lotto is so small because everyone thinks positively about that, right? So, but that doesn't stop you from going and buying a lotto ticket. So you're being proactive. So be proactive. Don't sit around and wait. If you have an idea, believe in yourself, push forward. It's not always going to be easy.
Yes.
I had a dream when I was 9 years old to go to the Olympics and win a gold medal, and I eventually got my medal when I was 21 years old.
Whoa.
It didn't happen overnight. I didn't wake up when I was 16 or 18 and go, I want to go to the Olympics. It took a long time, like 12 years. And it was hard, my family, on weekends, I remember my mom and dad dragging us to, the TMs and bon marchés, because my mom had baked cakes and we were going to sell them so that they could afford to send me on swimming tour. Wow. It wasn't easy. But I can say that when you do finally achieve that goal, it's well worth it.
Yeah.
And so just believe in yourselves and know that, the best things in life generally take hard work and ups and downs.
Honorable Coventry, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Cleopatra Makoni from the Boost Fellowship Trust. Boost is an acronym that means Building Opportunity on Student Talent. So we work with a lot of youths, especially in our institutions, the tertiary institutions and the vocational training centers, and then now we're working with just a wider network of youths because we're realizing with the high unemployment rate, we have a lot of mileage to cover in terms of the youth that we can work with. So that's the organization that I work for. Our flagship program is called Enactus, which works in communities to empower young people to identify community problems and then try and build business solutions that solve the community problems, thereby creating business opportunities to employ other youth and then making an income for themselves. So that's what I do in a nutshell. So what is work in a Zimbabwean context? I think work is a set of tasks, responsibilities, duties that are assigned at driving towards a particular result or a particular outcome. But I like defining work in terms of the specific context that it's based in. So if we look at our own Zimbabwean context, what does work look like now for a young person? So I've heard so many times people say in Zimbabwe we suffer from an employment syndrome, which is why everybody thinks, when you finish school, you need to get a job and work for somebody else. That's the only way you to succeed. And I feel so many of our youths are stuck in that era where they have that whole employment syndrome. But looking at what it's like now, work does not really mean getting employed because we are sitting at over 80%, almost 90% unemployment, meaning there's only so many jobs that can be created from the pipeline due to different reasons. So because of that, I think we need to start looking at work in a different context in terms of Zimbabwean-based context. So yes, it is tasks, it is duties, it is roles, it is responsibilities driven towards getting to a specific outcome. But what sort of tasks are they now faced with? So we as Boost train entrepreneurial skills, leadership training, mentorship, and all these things that are driven at trying to make youth think without the box, for instance, and then for them to become more problem solvers who then create their own jobs and their own opportunities rather than wait to be employed by other people, which is what I was talking about as the employment syndrome. So I honestly think in terms of Zimbabwean context, work has changed, a lot has changed. So it's no longer the usual work that we probably defined in the 90s, where you would have to get a job and then work, and then that is what we define as work. So speaking on this future of work, I know there's so many talks going around on the future of work, but in Zimbabwean context, I actually think the future of work lies in problem solving and entrepreneurship training, because we need to empower these youths to create jobs for themselves. And we have so many problems, but then they need to look at these problems as opportunities to potentially create a business, to potentially employ another youth, to potentially create more opportunities for other youth that are coming up. And then just in general, on the World Youth Skills Day, I think the theme is transforming education. So this speaks more to the curriculum of what we're teaching our young people, to say versus than ways before we were teaching them that they need to focus on the education and then get a job. I think let's treat them now to look at problems as opportunities for them to build their own businesses and become employers, not employees.